move very quickly to change that. Of course, foreign nationals that have broken the law in many countries will be deported instantly.
Yeah, but then we get UK offenders that have offended abroad sent back, so the gains are relatively small.
But there is a message there, and then we can rehabilitate the prisoners again over in the UK and hopefully steer them on the right path.
Yeah, but you're ignoring the fact the gains are negligible because all the British prisoners that are in foreign jails will be sent back. So you get about 5,000-6,000 places extra, which is significant, but
it's
a massive amount of bureaucracy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there's an element there that's just one tip of the iceberg. I mean, we go back to the climate change conversation, and the narrative is wrong. Just Stop Oil wouldn't protest in a UAE country or another country because they wouldn't be allowed to get away with what they're getting away with.
So that's advocating to live in a police state then, if you want to do that, no?
I'm not in a police state, but if you stop somebody's critical care in an ambulance with a blue light, this is one of the conversations, an ambulance with a blue light on, it's there to get somebody in an emergency situation through to critical care and
totally agree.
Save their lives.
Totally agree.
If you are an activist and you stop that passage of a blue light vehicle, then shouldn't you be prosecuted and tried for maybe a second-degree manslaughter?
All right, then okay, same scenario, exactly the same scenario, but the person in the ambulance has developed a lung disease caused by pollution, caused by fossil fuel emissions. Should the people that sign the licenses for the fossil fuel emissions, knowing the potential damage that it would cause to the human race, should they be on manslaughter charges? Because people don't just get lung infections. Well, you can get lung infections with virus, you can get diseases and illnesses from pollution. That is an established fact. So where is the culpability for the people that are poisoning them?
But let's look at this in a different way. If we were to say, right, we want to get the cars off the road, if we were to make the train network cheaper than driving a car, this is where it really boils down to, because it's all about money. I hate to say it. Money is the driver behind all of this. If we gave an incentive to get everyone off the roads and use public transport, the £2 bus service, my wife and I just flew from Stansted. Okay, I mean that's a carbon cost, but we flew from Stansted, but the bus journey that we took an hour and a half, but it was £2 each.
Germany, you can go anywhere on the train network in Germany, I think for €3.5, something like that.
For the whole month of that's one journey. For the whole month of July in Germany, you could go anywhere with unlimited stops and unlimited journeys for 10 euros.
Alistair, I've got to wrap this up, and the point you're making is just critical to the entire discussion, which of course is we were having this discussion. If we can get our country back on its feet and a better public transport system, which I've heard so many politicians over so many decades promise but not deliver, I think is key to that. Absolutely, thank you. I've got to move on because Abigail Foster is hanging on the line, waiting to give us personal finance advice, as she does every Sunday. Good morning to you, Abigail.
Good morning, Matthew.
I'm going to start, if I may, with Labour conference. I mean, I don't know whether you're expecting it to be as upbeat and as celebratory as Labour were originally planning, but it has been suggested that Rachel Reeves may deny that she is getting a £10 billion windfall from the Bank of England, which we were only discussing yesterday, cuts the £22 billion black hole almost in half.
Yes, and that is because it is due to the Bank of England's quantitative tightening decision. It's not necessary that she is gifted 10 billion tomorrow, and that should therefore come off of that 22 billion. It's a case of what will happen with future bond sales and things like that. But yeah, there is discussions around that 10 billion and whether it's a positive thing, but obviously we're talking billions here, we're not talking millions, so 22 to 10 is still a lot, and there's pressure on her obviously to bringing back the fuel cover for elderly people. So maybe they'll bring out some of that in the Labour Party conference, discuss it slightly. Even the autumn statement, obviously, end of October, we'll see the autumn statement. So I'm very much watching this to find if there's any hints to what will be in that autumn statement for sure.
I bet. I mean, interest rates, base rates are interesting. As you always say, we have to keep one eye on what goes on across the pond. So the Federal Reserve is cut US interest rates by 0.5%.
Yeah.
That, when I read that, I just thought, well, that's going to be good news for us here in Britain, is it?
Yes, so the thing is, it was to stimulate the US economy. I think it was pretty much a 100% guarantee that they were going to be dropping their basis points in this last Fed rate decision, but not by 50 basis points, or also known as 0.5%, because no one expected that. And I think it meant that obviously the S&P 500 hit record highs, and a lot of the UK invest in the S&P 500. So we forget about the impact that the US has on like our investments in the UK. And we're often, there's often conversations that the Bank of England follow what the Fed do. However, obviously, last rate decision, they didn't. They made their own decision, which was wonderful. And then this decision, they kept flat because actually there was only one Monetary Policy Committee member that chose to drop it. And I think it's because actually this time around there wasn't really a conference. And so if they were going to drop it again, they wanted to make sure that they explained why. And also, I think they're waiting for the autumn statement really, because they're going to want to find out what's going to happen there, because the next base rate will be after the autumn statement in November. What will the impact of that be on the economy, and therefore what does the Bank of England need to do? Because as we just spoke about, that Bank of England £10 billion is, coming from them for certain aspects.
Can you, in just a few seconds, tell me what quantitative tightening is? Because I read it out yesterday and I had to hold my head up straight away to the listeners, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm reading it. So what is, remember quantitative easing is just printing money that you don't have. So what is quantitative tightening? Taking money out?
Okay, I don't want to ruin this either, but it's a case of, it's basically around selling bonds that the bank have. And the reason I was saying that the Office for Budget Responsibilities have to make assumptions based on future bond sales, because they haven't sold these bonds yet. Like Goldman Sachs came in and said it could be roughly around 10 billion, but we don't know it's exactly 10 billion yet, because it's going to depend on
future
sales. Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. I understand. Thank you, Abigail. I've run out of time. I can't ask you about what listeners can do to increase their credit score, but seeing as I've been threatened with having my credit score reduced, it's something we'll have to talk about next week, so we'll keep that top of our list. Abigail Foster, have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to change tack for our final hour, because the Mohammed Al-Fayed story, it occupies my mind, and I wondered what we might be able to talk about for the final hour, and it's whether charities that have been receiving money from the Al-Fayed Foundation, charitable foundation, in some cases hundreds of thousands of pounds, whether those charities should continue to take the money now that Al-Fayed, albeit after his death last year, stands accused of being a monster who raped 5 women at least, and many more are coming forward with allegations. Does that mean the money that the charities take is tainted and they should not accept it? Should they even give money that they previously received back? Or are we big enough to accept that the two things are not entirely related, and that the charitable needs are greater, perhaps for the greater good, than refusing the money in respect to those women that have been abused? It's a really awkward dilemma. I can do with the help. 0345 606 973 is the number. First though, the latest LBC News headlines at 9 o'clock.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, the Labour Party conference begins this morning with the Deputy Prime Minister outlining new protections for tenants. Angela Rayner will vow to build homes fit for the future, which won't have mould, damp and fire safety defects. Ben Beadle, Chief Executive of the National Residential Landlords Association, has told LBC he's pleased the rental industry is getting top billing.
We've got a massive crisis of housing in this country, both in the social and the private rented sector. So in some respects, I'm pleased that she's going to be giving the sector certainty, because that's what we've been craving for the past 5 or 6 years.
We're getting reports of a mass shooting in the United States. It's understood. fighting between Hezbollah and Israel has continued overnight, with more than 100 rockets launched from Lebanon into northern Israel. In response, Israel says it carried out a wave of strikes hitting some 400 militant sites. Zach Ganders, a freelance Middle East correspondent based in Tel Aviv, told LBC this fight against Hezbollah appears to have support from Israelis.
We've got a hostage deal that just can't get done, government that nobody likes, and it seems like it's been tearing itself apart, it seems, but somehow still stays together. And this one issue, the northern conflict with Hezbollah, that seems to be the one thing where everybody kind of steps back and goes like, you know what, we've needed to do this for a long time. We've needed to address Hezbollah. They can't keep hitting us like this.
There are worries substandard power banks for e-bikes and e-scooters are behind a rise in fires. LBC's learned the number of emergency call-outs to fires involving lithium-ion batteries has risen nearly 60% in 1 year. Simon Blanchard's home in Doncaster was destroyed in a fire caused by an e-bike in July. He told us the damage was devastating.
There's walls falling off, ceilings coming in. There's nothing left, all cupboards are off it. Walls not lining up, they got blown off at explosion. Stuff all over the place, there's a buggy in the kitchen, we just got that.
LBC weather, heavy rain for most of southern England and Wales with some thunder at times. It will be dry in the north with sunny spells in the west and feeling warm at humid with highs of 20 degrees. From Global Newsroom for LBC, I'm Jenny Barsley. We all live.
The Crown Prosecution Service says it's twice considered bringing charges against the former Harrods owner Mohammed Al-Fayed. On both occasions, it concluded there was no realistic prospect of a conviction. Dozens of women have already allegations of being sexually assaulted or raped by the billionaire who died last year. Nick Johnson reports.
3 days ago, a BBC documentary revealed allegations by more than 20 women of rape and sexual assault against the late billionaire Mohammed Al-Fayed. Lawyers representing his alleged victims say that since then they've received 150 new inquiries. In 2009, the Crown Prosecution Service was handed a file of evidence by police who investigated claims that Mr. Al-Fayed had sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl in the boardroom at Harrods. The CPS declined to bring charges. Now, as first reported by the Sunday Times, it's been confirmed the CPS also decided in 2015 not to prosecute the billionaire after reviewing an allegation of rape. In a statement, the CPS said that in both cases it did not feel confident there was a realistic prospect of conviction.
Donald Trump has ruled out taking part in another televised debate with Kamala Harris. The Democratic candidate in Obama's presidential election said yesterday she'd accepted an invitation from CNN to hold a second head-to-head debate next month. But speaking at a campaign review in North Carolina, Mr. Trump said there would be no repeat as it was too late. President Macron has announced a new French government almost 3 months after the snap election delivered a hung parliament. 10 cabinet positions have been given to members of the Conservative Republicans Party, despite a left-wing alliance winning the most seats in July. Opposition parties have vowed to challenge the new government with a confidence motion. The left-wing leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon said France should get rid of it as soon as possible. There was a major shock when the British heavyweight boxing clash at Wembley Stadium last night as Lamar knocked out Anthony Joshua in 5 rounds to retain his IBF world title. In front of a record crowd of 96,000 fans, Dubois dropped his opponent to the canvas multiple times to secure the biggest win of his career. Speaking after the fight, Joshua admitted he'd made a lot of mistakes, but insisted he'd be back.
Yeah, I think, you know what it is, before I came here, I'm always saying to myself, I'm a fighter for life. We rolled the dice at success, and we came up short, and we roll it again, innit? You know what I mean? We keep rolling the dice.
An optimistic Anthony Joshua.
And the prize-winning newsreader Tina Ritchie. Hello, we're live on BBC Radio 4 as the Labour Party conference begins. That will be our top story in just a moment. We'll go round the points of the shipping forecast. We'll head to the Israel-Lebanon border and we'll talk about people queuing in pubs. First, the super rich have started leaving the country, fearing the budget and too much government glue. So says one businessman in an interview just ahead. Labour meets in Liverpool today for its first conference in government for 15 years. The Prime Minister says in The Observer he wants to fix the Downing Street leaks, much more ahead. Labour won, and historic victories for Conservatives were punished at the polls and started with an ambitious King's speech. But since then, there's been a row over winter fuel payments, Sue Gray's pay, and freebies at the top. It's a stark reminder. We are a fortune.
Things will get worse.
A £22 billion black.
Charitable donations, of course, don't grow on trees. I've done a lot for bankers, so it's hard to get people to hand over money, especially in difficult financial times. But it's also important that the charities are seen to do the right thing. My question is, ladies and gentlemen, what is the right thing? 0345 6060 973 is the number. I'm going to offer what I consider to be a precedent. I think it's a precedent. It happened in the aftermath of what was known as the President's Club dinner scandal of 2018. Now, those of you with good memories will remember how a fundraising dinner for gentlemen, in inverted commas, allegedly saw many of the young female hostesses groped by guests in what host David Williams called the most un-PC event of the year. It was an absolute scandal. The world-famous Great Ormond Street Hospital was the principal beneficiary of that London bash and took immediate and decisive action as soon as the story broke. The story trundled on for weeks. It vowed to return all the monies it had received from President's Club dinner, not just that year, but all the previous years. I think it had run for something like 25 years. Now, some of us are going to ponder whether depriving a hospital for sick kids of vital funds is a crazy way to address the scandal. We are literally stopping something good coming from something bad. But at the same time, it is difficult for those in the know to then forget about where these tainted funds may have come from. So, what is the right thing to do? Is it return the money? Is it to refuse future donations? Is it just to take the money? As I said, there's no suggestion, no implication of any wrongdoing by the charities at all. The question is whether the money is tainted by the fact that Al Fayed now stands accused of multiple rapes, multiple sexual assaults, grooming, the use of medical invasive procedures on staff. It's a catalogue of horrors. Does that mean the money is no good for charity? I don't know. Something good out of something bad. That's where I'm going to go with that. Something good out of something bad. Well, somebody who's been doing an awful lot to bring good where there was bad is Maggie Oliver, former detective constable at Manchester Police, founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation, who did so much to sort of tackle head-on, sort of frankly lackadaisical approach to child grooming, sex crime. She joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have to say, first of all, it's lovely talking to you after all this. I hope you're doing all right. It's good to make contact. Should Cancer Research UK continue to take donations from the Al Fayed Foundation?
Well, I'll just say first of all, I came on really to talk about Al Fayed's offending, but I will divert. I've just heard your introduction, and I'll do my best to make what I say relevant to what you've just said. I think it's particularly relevant because I started my own charity called the Maggie Oliver Foundation in 2019, and we support survivors and victims of sexual abuse who come to us for help, having been failed by the authorities. I have a charity and we rely on funding to exist. Now I've got a staff team of 7. We've got 30 volunteers. We don't take, I deliberately chose, for instance, not to take funding from police and crime commissioners, from the police, from the establishment, because I want to know that I can hold my head up and know that I am telling the truth and it's not dependent on funding.
On that particular issue, as anyone who's read your book or knows your story, the antipathy of some of your police colleagues was appalling. So I totally understand that completely. Carry on, I didn't mean to interrupt the code.
So with other charities, I think it's a decision for them. But again, earlier this year we were offered some money from a crowdfunding thing, which raised questions about the integrity of where the money, not where the money would come from, but people have donated with a particular aim in mind, and it didn't the two things didn't go together, so we refused that money. So for me personally, where the money comes from, if you're going to try and be a charity that acts with integrity and honesty, and you are supporting victims, whatever kind of crime, for me it matters where the money comes from. But on the other side of that argument, if you've got Ormond Street Children's Hospital and there are children there dying because the government has underfunded the NHS and there isn't equipment, then it is a real dilemma, because you may be offered millions of pounds and you could make good out of bad.
You've just taken me on the whole point. I'm just thinking, you have one of the most defined moral compasses of any person I've ever met, and I knew if anybody was going to have a clear view about their charity, it would be you, and you do. And I was completely on side. And then you say, what about these sick children who's, as you said, hospitals starved, hospitals generally starved of cash. Something bad. Is that a misplaced sentiment from my point of view?
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's a decision. It's an impossible decision in a way. I mean, I had my little granddaughter died just before she was 3 years old, and if somebody come to me and said, Mohammed Al Fayed has got £5 million and that would save her life, would I have refused it? I don't know. So I don't think it's a right or wrong answer, but I do know that with my own charity, we have refused money from people whose integrity I question, or whose views we don't align with. It's ordinary, decent people, and I don't know what all their views are. But once you do know, and with Mohammed Al Fayed, I would argue that the reason that these rape victims have been abandoned for decades is entirely due to his wealth and power. People in positions of influence, they chose not to prosecute him. The CPS, the police. Now, I would say that a great deal of that would have been because he had powerful lawyers protecting him. Money was no object, whereas one individual rape victim is like with brain damage, very easy to dismiss. We need to join up the dots. We need systems, policing, CPS, the courts. We need systems that are fit for purpose, that are funded properly, and that have joined up systems. They don't have that. So if you had 60 women in different places throughout the country making allegations of rape against Mohammed Al Fayed, each individual police force would not connect those dots. We have got major problems in this country, and maybe that money actually would be very well used to put into the systems that are broken. So policing, so the CPS, so the courts, so that rapists are properly tried, that the evidence is built, that we have more police officers, that the public services are fit for purpose. That might be a very good use of that money, and in the right hands, although I'm reluctant to say give it to the government, because I do not trust their decision making on where they choose to put the money that they do have. So many questions, not really any answers.
I think I have no complaint about that, ladies. You did take me, and I'm sure the listeners on the journey where I was completely persuaded, I have to say, at the point where I thought, no, the charities shouldn't take the money. It's important for the charities to maintain their integrity. How would anybody who received the money feel if they then found out where it had come from? And then you turned it totally around and got back to Great Ormond Street Hospital, sick kids, and let's say there was £5 million and someone needed £5 million of treatment to save their life. It would be, I mean, if it was my daughter, I'd want the money, wouldn't I? You save your daughter. Something good out of something bad. Your thoughts to follow, please. 0345 606 973. Headlines first, though, from Jenny Bowles.
The Labour Party conference begins this morning with the Deputy Prime Minister outlining new protections for tenants. We've got reports of a mass shooting in the United States. At least 4 people have been killed, and the Crown Prosecution Service has revealed it decided against bringing sex assault charges against Mohammed Al Fayed on 2 occasions. LBC Icy weather, wet and thundery in southern England and Wales. Dry with sunny spells elsewhere, highs of 20 degrees. LBC Travel, I'm Louise Goopy. In Manchester, the M62 is closed in both directions. That's while repair takes place to the bridge between junction 20 and 19 for Hayward. There are delays on the approach. In Lincolnshire, in Usselby, the A46 is closed in both directions as well. That's while investigation work takes place after an accident between Moor Road and Low Road. In Hertfordshire, the A1M is shut northbound because of an accident between junction 1 and junction 3 for St Albans. And in Hampshire and Havant, the A27 is closed eastbound. That's because of works for the weekend from the Lansdowne roundabout through to Emsworth Junction. On the trains, there are delays of up to 20 minutes and some cancellations on southern services. That's between Lewis and Brighton because a tree has fallen on the line.
This is LBC.
At Tesco Mobile, our deals are so good you'll want to tell the whole group chat. Get the Samsung Galaxy S24 with advanced AI for just £31.99 a month with club card prices, saving you a massive £306. And better yet, that price is frozen for your whole contract. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. And 31st of October, charging 24 manufactured agreements apply. Frozen for contract duration. Terms at Tesco Mobile difference.
This is LBC.
Get that Euro Millions feeling with this Friday's £107 million super jackpot. So super, you've got to dance. So let's dance like never before on the beach, on your own private island. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Play on air. Estimated jackpot subject to currency fluctuations. Account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
Here we go again. Running a small business, I should be used to early mornings. Gotta stay ahead of the competition. After all, the early bird catches the sun loungers by the pool.
With an American Express business card, spend securely and earn points on business transactions to put towards your dream holiday.
Right by the bar as well.
The card is for business, the points are for pleasure. Search Amex Business Card. Terms and annual fees apply. 18 plus, subject to status.
It's summer.
No, honey, it's winter.
No, honey, it's summer.
No, honey, it's winter.
We're wearing shorts. The sun is shining, and you used sunscreen earlier. It's summer.
Okay, you're right. As always.
Say yes to summer. Fly to South Africa this winter. Lufthansa.
Listeners, we interrupt the airwaves to share an incredible discovery. The reason why Britain hasn't been so great of late is because the country hasn't been eating enough Weetabix. We must get to work in rebuilding Great Britain, bix by bix, by delivering Weetabix to whoever's in charge of fixing potholes, to VAR.
Tina Ritchie, I think you're thinking of Coleman, stripped to the waist.
No, I'm not.
No,
Absolutely not. No, I'm going to be a bit controversial. It puts me on edge. I mean, it's a sharp tool. Maybe I've become risky there, isn't it?
Oh, well, no, I think people would want you to be honest. I can tell you more about it now. The wildflower meadows are in the neighbour's garden. It's called the Dun. And Nigel, who's signing, is modesty personified, so you are hearing a very modest voice. Thank you very much to Debbie and to Simon for signing. Stop queuing in single file in pubs, so say signs spotted in pubs from Ambleside to Bristol. Rod Truan runs a social media account, Pub Queues, on X, which documents drinkers lining up at rather than crowding around the bar.
Well, I think it's become very dystopian, actually. It is baffling that hundreds of years of pub tradition. I know that the Brits are a nation of queuers, but the one exception to that rule was in pubs, where we have a 40-metre long, 40-foot long bar for a reason. It's not a hatch, and we queue along it, and even though you're not in a formal queue, you are being served in order anyway in a traditional line. It's baffling, and it's a strange phenomenon how the whole psychology of the nation has changed en masse without any directive. I find it very odd indeed.
The editor insisted that we go into a pub last night to ask whether it's a queue or a scrum which punters prefer.
door queues. It's what makes Britain Britain. Do you know what I mean? Single file queues is what Britain's about. So simple.
I think it's an absolute disgrace. I would never queue. Never.
I think a single file queue, because organization is key. If it's like this smodge podge of humans, how do I know when I'm going to be next?
You think that the sort of pushy person gets served first?
Yeah, and I'm a pushy person, so it works for me.
Have you heard that people are queuing in single file in pubs?
I've never. That's ridiculous. We should be single file. That's great.
Everyone's standing around the bar, and it's the bartender's job to know who's to work for somebody. And I think it also depends on the customer. If people are nice to you, you're nice to them. If people are not nice to you, when you're good to mum is good to you. Exactly, yeah, in a way. It's nice to like people. So thank you for letting me interrupt you. James May is listening, the broadcaster and presenter of the Grand Tour and more, as well as landlord of the Royal Open Swimming Club. Welcome back to James.
Good morning.
Single file queues in pubs, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means something wrong with the nation, because I associate queuing. I agree that queuing is a very British thing. What we do for post offices and therefore security, not pubs. And as your original caller said, the bar is designed to be broad and shallow so that people can cluster around it. And good bar staff know, they keep a tab on when people have arrived and who's next.
Is there a stress? Is there a stress for all of us when the staff don't?
Well, it wouldn't happen in my time, necessarily. No, it wouldn't. I mean, the whole shape of the pub and the whole culture of the place doesn't support the idea of a single file queue. And I think if I arrived at a pub and saw a single file queue, I'd just think, oh, sod that brigade soldiers and go somewhere else, because it's not pub-like.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it, but I've heard people talking about it. People, I don't know where it's come from. Some people have said it's a sort of hangover from COVID, but I'm not exactly sure why, because the pubs remained closed during COVID and then they went to table service. So I don't know where this idea that COVID has inspired in us a new enthusiasm for queuing where we've never queued before for centuries and centuries. I don't quite buy that one. I don't know, maybe we've all just become meek.
Ed Sturton's risen. Your talk of centuries and centuries has brought him awake. Hey, where do you stand on queues?
My ideal pub is deep in the country. There's a chap outside doing that siding thing we just heard. It's so sleepy inside that you have to bang on a bell to get any surface. And I just don't go into the sort of pubs that you clearly patronise. A queue gets me straight back out the door.
James, are you with Ed?
Yes, I am. It sounds like we used to go to the Royal Open Swimming Club. It's not quite banging down territory, but it's fairly quite open. Got very, very lovely and attractive young people working behind the bar who can spot you immediately. So wherever you stand, one end or the other.
So it's a date. Well, actually, you see, the thing is, part of my research last night, I say research, is that you say young staff have it, but actually it's the older, more experienced bar-made bar man. They're the ones who can control the sense that you are going to be served. They say you're next, and they run the system. Don't you think that actually it's the experience of running the bar, James, is what makes it work?
Well, yes, to some extent, but I mean, our young people have developed this experience already. And I'm talking as someone, it's a little bit of a gamble, it's a little bit of a sport. I'm speaking as someone who in his 20s and 30s suffered from infinite barring visibility.
Yes.
The guy who stood there holding my £5